Hello everyone. In this tutorial I'm going to cover how to create your snowman in Adobe Illustrator from your sketch that gets approved. And before we talk about creating the illustration, I want to talk about sketches. And one of the things you want to do with your sketches is when you send them to me, before you send them, you want to number them, okay? This is so important because it makes it far easier to identify and makes it a little quicker because otherwise if you don't number your sketches and I'm trying to tell you which one to go with, or I'm trying to tell you which one to go with, but maybe make some alterations to, then I have to take it, place it in Photoshop, draw, circle it, draw on top of it, and it just takes more time because otherwise, if you just number them, I can type in an email to you. Okay, go with number two, but flip it and make some alterations or whatever. So anyway, that's what I want you to do with your sketches, and you should always do that because it makes it far easier to communicate with your clients. So anyway, let's get started here. I'm going to close that file up. So what we're going to do is we're going to now the last tutorial I covered about creating a new document. So you should already know how to do that. In this tutorial, we're going to talk about placing your image and working with it. So what I'm going to do is when you get your sketch approved, I would use the app that I use Camscanner. Okay, Camscanner is a free app that you can download um, on your phone, and it makes it a little easier because you can actually crop easier than using your phone camera, and then you can actually email it to yourself or email it to me. So anyway, that's what I would recommend. I mean, otherwise you can try use your phone camera. It's just that I have an iPhone, and the features are great, but Cam Scanner has a nice way of cropping things, and you could use either. But I just recommend Cam Scanner. Okay. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I am going to show you how to place your image in here. And what we want to do is we don't want to open the image. Okay, we want to go, we want to have a new document like I have here, and we want to go file and place. Okay, so I'm going to file and place, and then you've got to go find your sketch, and you want to look on your, I always save my sketches to my desktop, but you want to know where it's located at. Now we're not going to place it as a link here, we're just going to place it. Okay, so we're going to hit place. Now when you place it, this is what happens. You see this, and basically what I usually do is I go towards the top of the page, the top left-hand corner, and I click, and then it places your image. Now, you probably need to resize it. So we want to resize it, and so we want to go and get the selection tool. And when we resize it, we don't want to distort it, okay? Because you could very easily distort. I'm going to undo that. You want to hold down your shift key. Okay, so it actually will fit into your picture, your actual your page, and we're using an 8.5 by 11-inch page here. Okay, and so I'm going to place this here. All right. Now the next thing I'm going to do is uh, I am going to go and bring up my transparency palette. Now I've already have it here. All right. And your transparency palette, in case you have if you're looking for it, you can go up under Window, and you can go to transparency, okay? And it will bring it up. Now, what we want to do is we want to keep your image selected, all right? Go to your transparency palette, and what we're going to do is we're going to go from normal here to multiply, okay? Now, what that will do is when you're drawing, all the white all the white here now is invisible, okay? Anything that's gray is translucent. Anything that's black, is pretty solid black. Now, what we're going to also do is we're going to actually lower the opacity, okay? So I'm going to come over here and lower the opacity so it's a little lower here. And then we're going to lock that layer, okay? Now, what we're going to do is after that, we're going to create a new layer. So we can go here, create new layer, or you can come over here and create new layer, all right? And we'll just, you can name it if you want to. I never name mine until I actually get to working on it, okay? So anyway, I'm going to click OK. And then we're going to drag this layer up underneath here. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to start building this thing. Okay. So this is my little sketch here. I decided to go with a little devil snowman. I thought it'd be cool because if he's the devil, then he'd be melting. So that's kind of my little concept there. All right, so I'm using my mouse, and I'm going to just draw a little bit here, and we'll draw this cone shape to begin with because we can start anywhere. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw this, and then remember I'm just clicking with the pen tool. Okay, so let me go back here so I explain this a little bit better. We'll zoom in. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click with the pen tool. I got the pen tool here. We're going to click up, go straight. All right, and then we're going to click down here. Now what I can do is, if I'm going to make a curve, first of all, I'm going to close this path. And I'm going to actually click, and I'm keeping my finger on the mouse button, okay? I have not let go. I'm going to drag out, and that's how I get this curve, okay? Now, right now, this shape, we don't see anything. And that's because we have a fill of white with no stroke. Well, I'm going to put a stroke on this, okay, so we can see it. All right, and so anyway, we're going to put that stroke on. We're going to up it to maybe 2 points. It's really pointy. And remember, I've got my stroke options showing. So if you don't have your stroke options showing here, you want to go show options on the side here, so you can see this. And I'm going to go to my corner, and you see this, and this. See, that just sort of shortens that corner so it's not so pointed, all right? Now, I'm going to go back here for just a second because we're going to leave that shape. But I want to talk to you about what we did earlier and using multiply. So let's just go up here. And mind you, you do not have to do this, but I'm showing you this because I want you to understand why we're setting this in transparency to multiply, okay? Because if we don't have it set to multiply, and we go, and let's bring up the opacity all the way here, okay? And let's go up to normal. Then you will, if you're drawing down here, you won't be able to see anything, okay? That is why we have it set that way, all right? So I just want to point that out. Because if you're drawing and you're going, oh, I can't see what I'm drawing because I built my layer and moved it up underneath there. That is what's happening, okay? So I'm going to just undo that. I just like to cover these things to troubleshoot, okay? So now I've gone back. We'll relock it, and we'll keep working, okay? So anyway, we can build this thing. You don't have to worry specifically about what order you're building your snowman or snow person, I should say, in. So anyway, I'm going to use my circle tool, and what I'm doing is I'm holding down my Alt key as I drag it out. And if I want it to be a perfect circle, I can hold down my Shift key. And it's kind of a perfect circle. But mind you, this is a character design, so we can actually alter the shape a little bit if we want to. But I kind of drew this pretty well. But if I wanted to actually alter this so it's more like my drawing, see this is a little bit more curved out here, then what I want to do is we can actually go to the pen tool. Now, I've tore this off. Remember, I talked about tearing this off last time. So if you go to your pen tool, and I'm trying to get this here, there we go, and just click on this edge here, this will tear it off. Now, mind you, we can use the pen tool with the plus sign, but the pen tool automatically, if you have a path selected, and you haven't changed the settings on it, it will automatically have a plus sign when you're clicking on it, okay? So I'm going to click that there. And then I'm going to move this over here, okay? And so I'm using the direct selection tool to move that with. I'm going to undo that and show you one more time here, okay? So all I'm doing is, we could use a pen tool with the plus sign, but like I said, I'm going to do the pen tool. And if you notice, if it's selected and we haven't altered the pen tool preferences, it will actually have a plus sign. When you're actually on an anchor point, by the way, you can delete it, just to let you know that, okay? So let me go back over here. We'll do plus sign, and then I'm going to go and use my keyboard shortcut A, which will go to the direct selection tool, And we'll move that over here a little bit. Now, you don't have to alter your thing to look more like you're drawing. You could actually make it better than you're drawing. I'm just showing you how to actually take an ellipse and make it so it looks a little bit more like you're drawing if you need to do that, okay? So now I'm going to pull this anchor point down, I mean this handle down here. All right. Now, let's continue on. We can do another nose perhaps, okay? Or do I say another nose? Another carrot shape, another cone shape. So we're actually going to do the nose here. And we're going to go and we're going to, I curved it a little bit. All right, so I'm curving it. I'm going to come back here and I'm going to click here to kill or delete that second handle. All right. Now, this has a little bit of a curve here, but I'm going to try to maybe do this. Because sometimes when I'm drawing this, sometimes you have to kind of undo things. And so I'm going to see how this goes. And I'm kind of used to using the pen tool. If you're not used to it, it's going to take you a little while to get used to actually, knowing what it does and how it's behaving. And if it doesn't behave the way you want it to, you just simply do undo, okay? So now I've got that part there. And by the way, so I noticed this here. Okay, let me turn my drawing off. Okay, so I'm going to so if you notice in my drawing, this horn that's basically supposed to be a carrot is supposed to be on top. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually just bring that all the way to the front. Okay, we're going to shift control or command right bracket. Now, if you don't know with a keyboard shortcut, you can always go to Object and Range and bring to front. Okay? All right. Now, let's continue on. And actually, I'm going to go back here. And I undid something, obviously. So I'm going to go back. And I'm actually, by the way, your curves, like if you aim towards the center of where you're going to be here, because last time I went this way and then I clicked and held down my mouse button and then pulled. But if I go towards the center here of between these two anchor points, and I pull out my handles and I go over here, this will just create, whoops, you want to wait for that circle. See that little circle next to the pen tool? That's so important because that indicates I'm on the anchor point and it's going to close it. All right, it's going to close this path. There we go. And you see it does a nice curve right there. All right, so there's a couple different ways you could do those curves. So now I'm going to do this shape here. And this shape is going to be very simple. I'm actually going to make it cleaner. I'm not going to do this thing here because, like I said, you can, when you're working in Illustrator and you're working with a drawing, you can always improve the drawing and make it better. So if you drew a line that you intended to be straight, you can just go straight. All right. So let's say I just do that and I close my path. Well, you know what? I want this sent to the back. So we can go Shift Command or Command Shift and send to the back by using the left bracket, right? So that will actually coordinate that there. All right. So I'm just going to continue building things, and we're going to play around here. I'm going to actually show you about the reflection tool because what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw his mustache. So I put a little mustache on it. We're going to give it a handlebar mustache, all right? Because he's supposed to be like the devil. So we're going to actually move it down like this. All right. We're going to curve like this. So like I said, I'm actually kind of making an improvement here to my original drawing. And we're going to take that and we're going to take that and we're going to swap the fill and stroke. Now notice what happens when I did that because remember we got a white stroke on that. What we're going to do is we're going to click on the stroke and click on the none button, okay? This so that it will be just a shape. So we're building some of our things have strokes and some will have shapes. So now we have that. Now I have another part of his mustache here and I could trace it out, but what I'm going to show you is about the reflection tool because I mentioned it last time. I said it's a really cool tool. And where we find that at is up under the rotation tool. Okay? So So I'm going to just bring this here. And then the way it works is, yeah, you could manually kind of do this and see that does that. But the way it really works best is if you hold down your Alt key or your Option key. On my Mac keyboards both. I'm going to click, and you notice something here. Let me pull it up here so you can see in the middle there. When I click that Alt key, there's a little thing that comes out. It looks like a little, dotted minus sign there. And that means that when I click my mouse button, that's going to activate the reflection tool. So what I'm going to do is I want to reflect this part of the mustache and reflect it over there. So I'm just going to click kind of in the middle of where I would think that would be at. All right. And then so I just clicked, and now this pops up. Now I'm going to preview this, okay? So it's going to flip it this way. Now what we can do is I can click OK, but then I've missed this one, okay? Well, we're going to do it one more time here. If you notice, I actually have a copy button. So we're going to copy it, and it will make a copy of that mustache. Now, we can actually move this mustache, or we can distort it. All right, whoops. Let's take that mustache and make it a little smaller here. And I want to bring my nose in front, okay? And so I'm going to actually click on the nose here. And I'm going to go Shift, Control, and right bracket, and that will quickly bring that to the front. All right? And so I'm just going to continue building things here. We'll make a little mouth here, and my mouth is going to be a shape. By the way, if you notice, I'm not drawing with a fill anymore. It's gone back to a stroke of black with a white fill. If you look at your color palette, or if you're looking over here, okay? So the last thing you click on will, whatever that shape has as far as stroke and fill, when you draw the next thing, that's what it's going to have. So I'm going to use my eyedropper, and I'm going to run into a problem here. I'm glad this popped up, because this was a problem that was happening when I was building this yesterday. If I click my eyedropper to pick this shape here, this happens. Now, if we look over here, what's happened is this says multiply 25%. And that is because even though we're on layer 2 here, layer 1 with our drawing is what it's selecting, or what it's sampling there. So I'm going to turn this off. You can just click on the eye there, and then I'm going to click that, and then I can go back here, okay? And I'm so glad that popped up, because otherwise you're going to be having problems. I'm going to draw out his little goatee here, okay? And like I said, we can improve the drawing. I'm just playing around here. And I'm just clicking, I'm making curves. I'm going to click and kill this second handle. We click down here, and then I pull. And mind you, when I'm doing this, I'm not letting off the mouse button, okay? I'm going to go back, and I'm going to kill this second handle. Remember, that's what I kind of refer to it as. And that's all because what one of my students said years ago. He goes, oh, yeah, you're killing that second handle there. All right, so we're going to go back and kill that second handle. All right. Maybe we do this. I'm just trying to draw this out and see what looks good. Now, after we draw this out, if we don't like how I drew it out, we don't have to delete it, and we can just actually alter the path by using the direct selection tool, okay? And that's the great thing about Illustrator that I was covering the last time, is when you draw something, if you don't like what it's doing, you don't have to delete and redraw, because that's what you would have to do in Photoshop. So what we're doing is I'm just going to move these handles, and maybe I'll just move this out here just to improve the design and the drawing of that goatee. Okay, so this handle here is straight, and if I wanted this to have a curve, then I can go to this anchor point tool up underneath the pen tool here. So I tore that off, and I'm going to click and drag out, and so that will convert that now to a curve, so that will be a little bit more natural that way. So let's take a look at our drawing and see what we have here. I'm going to turn off my drawing on top, and so this is what I have so far. And I'm going to just keep drawing here because I'm going to encounter some things here that basically you'll need to know. And so let me draw out. I'm going to use an ellipse here for this, or actually we could. And then what I'm going to do in order to get this kind of shape going on, because this is supposed to be like kind of his eyelash. So I'm just going to go in and actually, we can use our pen tool or the pen tool with the plus sign, or you know what? We don't need that. We could probably just go and pull this out. See that? All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust this handle a little bit, and then I want this to point. I want this anchor point to point and not have handles. And so I'm going to go to my anchor point tool and click again, and so it will do that. Now, if I don't want to have to redraw this eye, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my reflection tool. And I'm going to kind of aim for where I would think the middle would be, because I want it over here reflected. So we're going to click here. We're going to hold down our Alt key and click. I'll move this so that you can see. Whoa! Now, no, I'm glad this happened, because sometimes everything works well, and then my students run into difficulties because I didn't cover problems that are occurring. What is happening here is I had that anchor point selected with the direct selection tool. So it's reflecting that anchor point, okay? So we're going to cancel here. So when I want to reflect something, and notice here, we'll click back on the direct selection tool. You'll see that this anchor point is selected because it is solid, and the rest are hollow. They have white in them, okay? So what we want to do is we want to go to our main selection tool here and click on it. And then we want to use our reflection tool, okay? And then we'll hold down the Alt key again and see it will reflect it. Now, if it's not where you want it, don't worry. We can move it afterwards. We're going to copy, remember? There we go. All right, and we can move that over here a little bit. And then we're going to do his eyebrows. Now, the last shape I touched when I deselected was the head shape. So, and I'm going to actually kind of change and alter this a little bit and make his eyebrows a little bit more expressive. And like I said, your drawing is just a template. And we're actually going to talk about another way to make a template in our next exercise and next project here. And so I'm going to move that this way, move that way, and then we're going to actually I'm just going to swap the fill and stroke like that, and then I'm going to take the stroke. I'm going to click on the stroke, bring it forward, and click on none, so it does that. All right, and then I'm going to alter it just a little bit more because, I want to be clear here. When you draw something, you can always make it better, and that's what I love about working in Illustrator, because you don't have to erase out. You just click on these anchor points. Now, if we wanted a curve here, then what I can do is we can go and get that anchor point tool, and we can curve that out a little bit like that, so it looks a little bit more natural. Okay, and if we want to rotate this, we don't have to go to our rotation tool. We could just click on the main selection tool and just rotate this. So maybe it's more like that. And then let's reflect it. Okay, so let's get our reflection tool here. And then we're going to hold down the Alt key again, aim for the center, and then we're going to hit copy. And this happened by mistake, but this is kind of cool. I don't mind this happening, actually, because you'll see this in cartoons where the eyebrows they come outside the person, or they're floating above. But the problem is this eyebrow is so big, and this one's the same size. Well, I like the look of this, so we're just going to enlarge this eyebrow right here. Okay, there we go, and we moved it just a little bit. Now let's see what we have here. I'm going to just click off here. So this is what my drawing looks like. I've got this little water droplet here. It's like to make him look like he's sweating. So what I'm going to do is I want to make this look a little bit more natural. I'm not going to close my path. All right. Now right now I'm drawing, and the last shape I selected had a black fill in it and no stroke. So as I'm drawing, it's kind of covering up that. Well, mind you, and we'll just, go back there, kill that second handle here, even though we don't need to. I'm going to just swap the fill and stroke, okay? Then I'm going to go and make this corner just a little bit more curved here. And like I said, you can improve your shapes. Now this looks a little unnatural because, let's click off this for a moment. Notice we got the end of this path, the stroke, it looks rectangular. All right. Now we could go to our stroke palette and click a rounded cap here. We'll do a round cap, and that looks a little bit more natural, okay? The other thing we can do is we can use our width tool, because if this was like something we did with a brush pen, we could actually make this. Let me click on this here, and we'll just make this like this, okay? Now, if I do this here, then it all disappears. But what I'm going to have to do is go down here and pull out. And all I'm doing is I'm not looking for an anchor point. I'm clicking around and looking for where I want to pull at. So I'm using this width tool and just click on the path. The path needs to be selected, and I'm just pulling out, and it will widen that. And then I'll go back up here and make this look like this. So this will look a lot more natural, as you can see here, okay? And if we want to thicken that stroke, I'm going to go up to maybe 2 points. Now, if that's too thick, we can also do, we can type in here. So I'm going to do 1 point, maybe 2.5, and hit return. And so it's just a little thicker, okay? Now let's continue on. And I'm going to run into some problems here because I'm going to build some things in different orders so that we can play around with this. So I'm going to go and let's see here. This shape here, we might do it as an open path. So I'm going to actually go from here and just curve this a little bit. And I'm going to go around here. Okay. And there we go. And then the belt here, we can go either straight or we can do whatever. I'm going to go straight because I'm going to build the belt on top of it later on. Go back and delete that second handle. Okay. Go back, and we constantly do that, okay? Makes our job much easier. And we'll worry about the stroke weight after we get it done here. Now, I'm trying to trace this out to be a little bit more like the drawing because I like the way the shape is. But like I said, you can always improve it, and we're going to make probably some improvements here. Let's go around here like this, okay? Now, I'm just going to end it somewhere around here. Like that. And then we're going to go and make this stroke weight a little heavier there, okay? And let's look at it. We don't want to make it too heavy, so we went up to 4. We'll go down to 3 perhaps. Or we can actually, if we use our eyedropper, we can sample what this was, okay? And mind you, remember, this is what's going to happen because, again, we are sampling the drawing on top, which is set to multiply and 25%. So I'm going to turn it off. We'll click that there, okay? There we go. So now we've got the same stroke weight here, okay? So I'm just going to continue to build this thing because I'm going to run into some issues here that I'm going to talk about eventually. You may notice this right here happening, and that's because this shape right now, it's an open path, and when you have an open path, and let's put a color in there so we can see it a little bit better here. When you have an open path, and that means that this path did not go all the way around and close, and you've got a fill inside, then this is what's going to happen. It's going to draw that fill straight across between those two things. Now, we're not going to worry about that right now because I want to make this look kind of like a drawing. All right? That may be an issue later on, which we'll run into and we'll play around with. So anyway, let me go around here. We're going to do the belt, buckle. We'll do the buckle first. And I'm going to show you about expanding here. So I'm not, as you can see here, I am not tracing along the line of the belt buckle. I'm tracing in the middle of it. And that's because I'm going to show you another little feature here that Illustrator will do, which will make our lives a little easier sometimes if we're, depending on how we're working, okay? So I'm going to take that and say I'm curving that, and then we go back and we kill that second handle. We'll make this stroke a little thicker. Now, we want that to be filled with white, okay? And I'll make it one more little thicker here. Well, right now, it's a shape with a stroke on it. Well, I want to turn this stroke into a shape. And you're asking, what are you talking about there? Well, let me show you. Let me go to Object and Expand. And this will go to, say fill, stroke, and we'll just click OK. All right, now nothing has changed. I'm going to go to Command Y, or we can go here to outline, and I'll show you what's happened here, okay? And what's happened is, if you look, it's created a vector path, okay? I'm going to go back here, Command Y again. So I'll go back to this, what they call the preview mode, okay? So anyway, what I'm going to do is, since that is a path, we're going to swap the fill and stroke so we get something to like that, all right? Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to continue on, and I'm going to build the belt here. Actually, you know what? I want to kind of improve that shape, because why don't we just play around with what that shape would look like? Maybe it might curve right here, and then it might bow here, so it might come down here like this, and then we'll go over here like this, and then we'll go straight down. Because if it's a belt, well, actually, we could do this too. We can curve it a little bit if we want to. There we go. All right. Like I said, you can always make your drawing. Your drawing is that your sketch is just there as a guide. It's just there as what they call kind of a template. Okay. And then we'll come back over here, and then we'll curve that out. And now we're going to fill that with black. So right now this shape has a stroke of black and a fill of nothing. So we're just going to swap that. And that's that little button right there. Now, as you can see here, one of the things that happened is this is overlapped. So we're going to bring that forward. So Shift Control and bring that forward. But still we can't see that because this shape does not have a fill of white. So I'm going to put a fill of white in there, okay? And one other thing here is, and we can't see this too well, but let me turn this off here. I kind of had this little indentation here. And what that was representing was the actual the little part that goes through the belt loop. So I'm just going to build a little shape here. And I'm just going to wing it because I can't see it. Now, if I wanted to see it, we could go to outline mode, but you know what? It was such a rough little drawing, it doesn't matter. So I'm just going to make a little shape like this, and we can improve it after we've drawn it. Okay? So that will actually look like that little thing that goes through the belt loop. All right? There we go. I like that. Actually, you know what? That looks fine. All right, now let's continue on, and we're going to keep building here. So I'm going to actually build his arm now. And one of the things I'm doing is, well, we can end it there. Maybe I'll bow his arm out a little bit more right there. And then we'll just simply do this, okay? Now we want to make that stroke weight thicker. We'll go to 2 points here. Okay. And then let's continue on. And we'll do his glove. So pen tool this. Click over here. We can click up in here and curve that around. So instead of using the end of the branches like I did in the other snowman, I decided to give him kind of hands. And I just thought, maybe he has a glove. Makes it easier. And as we're tracing around this, we can always improve our drawing. I'm zoomed out a little bit here because you can work it, zoomed in if we want to. Sometimes it's good to zoom out. I was doing a tutorial yesterday in Photoshop about digitally painting, and I was zoomed out a lot because it made it much easier to see what I was doing. And then I would zoom in to correct things. Now, if you notice something, he's got 3 fingers. And if he's a cartoon character, Mickey Mouse had 3 fingers, And dealing with a cartoon character, they don't have to have all 4 fingers and a thumb. They need a thumb, definitely. But one of the things is I learned a long time ago is it really makes it much easier if you're dealing with only 3 fingers versus 4 if you're doing a cartoon character, okay? And so we've got that one done. I'm going to make some little minor improvements, maybe that. We can pull this up a little bit more. So we'll actually overlap that. Let's zoom in here, take a peek. Okay, so this obviously, I can see the corner is very pointed. I want to go and do a rounded corner so that it will look a little bit more natural. Okay, and that's not bad there. All right, so I noticed here on this path that I need to go in and I need to make some alterations. And one of the alterations I need to do is I want to make this so this goes up here a little bit more. So I'm going to go and click on this path. Now, here's the deal. If you've got an open path and you want to continue on it, like I'm going to do here, basically, well, you can select it, but, if you don't have it selected, get your pen tool, and as we get over the end anchor point, you'll see that slash, that little slash right there, okay? And what that will indicate is when I click, it will click on that path, and I'm going to continue that path. And I'm just going to simply curve this up here a little bit and go up here, all right? And then I'm going to deselect. Now, I've been deselecting some things, and I haven't been saying anything, but the way I deselect is the keyboard shortcut for that is, I don't know if it shows it up here, but what it is, and I'm wondering where they actually put this, but Shift Command A is the keyboard shortcut for deselect. And so let's see here. Yeah, I don't even know if they have it where you can find it on this, So anyway, oh, here it is. Here it is. Select all, deselect. All right, so that's the keyboard shortcut. Shift Command A. So it's a little awkward keyboard shortcut, but usually what I do when I'm working in Illustrators is I always have my fingers. I have my index finger and my ring finger on Command and Shift. And then what I'll do is I will actually press the Command key and the Shift key together, and then I'll just, with my middle finger here, I'll click the A key, and we'll deselect, okay? And the other way you can deselect too is, and we'll go back to selecting it, is you can actually click over here on the tool and click off, but that takes a little while. That's why it's good to know that keyboard shortcut. It makes it much faster, okay? So let's continue on here. All right, so let me get my, now if this, all right, so I'm going to actually want to draw this line here for the side of his little torso, his kind of his belly fat hanging off there, all right? So if, by the way, this path was selected, and I used the pen tool, and I was trying to draw another path, notice what will happen. It actually adds another anchor point, okay? So I'm not drawing. See, I went down here, didn't draw a path. So that's why, when you're drawing new paths, you want to make sure that everything is deselected. Now, it's going to tell me that I'm on that path, but I don't see a plus sign. It's like a little asterisk, okay? So it just shows me that, I'm going to create an anchor point there, and then we'll curve it down to here, like this. Maybe we'll make it a little bit so it's like that. I'm going to actually go back here. Remember, we can always edit. If we don't like the way we drew it, and we don't have to go by the same method, so maybe it's hanging off like that. And we'll tuck this in here. All right. Now let's go and do this path. Now we could kind of continue on, but I'm just going to do another path here. Okay. And we're going to just round that up there like that. Okay. So, oops, I hit my button. I got my brush tool. So I'm going to go back to the P key for my pen tool. That's a keyboard shortcut. Zoom out here and do Shift Command A to deselect that just to see what we've got built so far. And I just like to do this to see what else I got to do here. Okay. And let me work here. We're going to do, let me see here. I'm going to do his cape. I'm going to go around here. Go here. Now, what's happening is it looks like it's deleting as I'm going through here. It looks like I'm deleting some of my drawing. But remember, our fill right here is set to white, and if we turn it off, it won't be deleting that. Now we may want to actually, so I'm going to click straight through because I could have just ended it there, but sometimes you got to think in terms of, you look at your shape and you go, okay, I want that shape to be continuous. Because some of the problems, if you draw things where you end it here and we go this way and we go back up this way and then we go this, I'll just kind of make it quick here. We'll end that there. Whoops. No, actually I started another path there. But anyway, let me turn both of those off. We'll turn both those fills off. There we go. And we come down here and we start to draw this. It will probably look a little odd in that if we really examine it, we're going to turn off this drawing here. Notice, if we look at this, this does not line up. Okay? And mind you, I could go through and move this like this and make that look a little bit better. But, the easier way was to do what I was going to do to begin with. And that is, I'm going to just draw straight through. Go back here. Okay. All right. Now, let's go and click on that end anchor point again and continue straight through. Okay. So we'll take that there. And I'm just going to draw this cape as if, and we're going to send it backwards. So we're going to send it to the back here. There we go. And mind you, we can always improve the shape of the cape after we've done it. And sometimes, see, I'm not killing this second handle because I kind of want that curvature there. So sometimes those handles, that second handle can come in useful if you're trying to make everything smooth and you get used to using the pen tool. And see, I've been using the pen tool for years here. So, I know how, I kind of anticipate it, what it's going to do here. And I'm just want to explain this because a lot of times I'll be working on something, I just don't explain what I'm doing. Okay, we could kind of end that there if we want, or we can go straight through here, okay? And, of course, if we do that, that will cover up the head. But I kind of like that. All right? So now, if we want to send this to the back, but here's the problem, because I actually, let's turn off our drawing here. I kind of like how that cape goes up there like that. That was just by accident. That wasn't what I was intending to do, but it actually looks kind of cool like that. So what I'm going to do is, if I send this to the back, then the problem is, then it doesn't do that anymore. Okay? So I want to maneuver my shapes, and I can try to go through here and figure out what to do here, but I'm going to go undo here for a second. And what I really want to do is I want to bring this to the front here, okay? So we'll bring that to the front. There we go, okay? So now that looks a little bit better. Now, let's continue on. It looks a little funny because there's no line there. And if we look at our drawing, I kind of shaded it there. So I really kind of intended this to be a black shape or darker shape. So let's just make a shape here. And we'll improve on it because this was a little rough sketch here. And actually, I improved the sketch in Procreate. I did a little thumbnail. You saw my thumbnails. I actually, uh, I used my Camscanner app, and then I loaded it up in Procreate and then drew on top of it and corrected it and made it better. Okay. So anyway, let me continue on here. We'll swap the fill and the stroke. I'm going to turn the stroke off. So now we have that shape. Now, like I said, we could go straight through. Because why don't we try that, okay? Let's go through here. Because I was just kind of talking and not thinking. So we're going to go around and we're going to trace around this shape a little bit more, okay? And I'm just going to make a black shape. I'm trying to stay away from my anchor points. Because if I get on my anchor point there, it's going to select to that path, which is not a bad thing. But we want to make sure this path is black. I might just keep that, okay? We'll see what this does here. Okay? And if it does something we don't like, or I don't like what it's doing, then I'm going to undo it. I'm going to go back up here, trace along here, trace along there, and we're going to fill this with black, but take the white stroke off. Okay? Now let's see what we do if we send this to the back here. Yeah, actually that did a good job here. I'm wanting to run into something where I need to do something different, but I haven't run into it yet. I don't know if I will. Okay, everything seems to be working out. But let's say, all right, this is filled with white. We sent that. Well, here's a quicker way. I'm going to show something here. I'm going to bring this to the front for a second here, okay? So I'm going to bring that shape all the way to the front. Because I like to tell my students about this. And I'll talk about this in another tutorial next week. But let's say that we want this shape to go behind this shape. And we have a bunch of other shapes here. And this shape, if we bring it to the front, it may bring it too far to the front. Well, we can always move shapes a different way. And that is, I can select this mustache shape that I brought to the front, and I can cut it, Command X. Okay? And then I can figure out what shape do I want to paste it in front of or in back of. So I can click the nose and do Command B, and I'll paste them back. Or I can click the face shape and do paste in front. So that's another way we can move things quickly if you're trying to figure out where it needs to go and you've got a bunch of shapes here. Because if you look here, this is why I have not used this to move my shapes around. Now, some teachers will show this, but the problem is, look how many paths I got. That's why I kind of just keep that. This is a layer. These are sub-layers. And I would prefer to keep this closed up here on my layers palette, because if I need to move something, those are the ways I move things, okay? If I'm trying to move something not to the front or to the back, I just cut it and then I paste in front. All right, let's continue on here. I'm going to make this little shape here to indicate a wrinkle in his cape, or a fold. There we go. Okay, we want that to be natural, so we'll pull that out a little bit more. I'm trying to control that there. All right, now let's swap that. So we'll make that, and we'll up the stroke weight just a little bit here, and then we're going to go to our width tool. Now, our width tool, by the way, if you don't want to go to your toolbar, it's Shift W is our keyboard shortcut. And we're going to click on this end here and just point that a little bit. Then I'm going to go in the middle here and make that just a little fatter there. And then I'm going to go over here and point that. Now, if I want to, I can make this a little fatter here. And so this is a nice way to get, and it's not, there we go. Now it's going to pull a little bit. Just got to play around with this. Okay? And so that is a nice way to get a shape there that looks a lot more natural. Okay? Now, like I said before in our last tutorial, if for some reason, and I'm going to click on this here. If we want to take that off, we can always go up to our control palette and you'll see the variable width profile. We can always turn that off and go to uniform. All right, I'm going to undo that because I like that look. Okay, now we'll continue on here. We're going to, and actually, you know what? I think maybe I do have enough built here that you can kind of understand what I'm doing. That's why I kind of have this half-baked file right here. So this is more finished. Okay? So this will save us time in our tutorial. So I don't have to trace out everything. Okay, so now, you know, this I built a little differently. I have this shape here. I got that there. That's an open path. Okay? So let's say we want to color him. And we don't have to color all of him, okay? So let's look at this shading here that I did. And mind you, you can see here, I altered the glove because I thought it was too big and too far down. And you can always do that, all right? So let's look at, you know, let's say we want to make his cape red. Well, right now, it's on this shape, I happen to have no stroke on it. I mean, no fill on it. So we can actually click here in our color palette. If you're not seeing this in your color palette, because I like to have my color palette open, you can go and show options. Now some people will actually double click, and you can do this, and this will pull it up. Okay. I'm just so used to going over here and picking a color and then playing around with my sliders. So if I want to do red, and we're using CMYK because we're using a print document, then the way we make red, if we're just dealing with CMYK, is magenta and yellow, that's M and Y, will make red. And you can vary that red by pulling down your sliders, like I'm going to pull down the yellow a little bit here, so it will make it much more of that kind of red, okay? And it kind of reminds me of the red that you see in Charlie Brown or Peanuts characters, Snoopy. You know, Snoopy will sometimes have a cape or something, and his red is that red, okay? So let's go over here, and let's turn off our drawing, because if we go over here and use our eyedropper, it's going to do that, because it is selecting the color off that top drawing. So let's turn off that top drawing here, and click on that. Now we got that, okay? Want to make his gloves. Now the way I made this glove, let's make this glove red, but we'll maybe vary the red a little bit, so that they don't blend too much together. So we can always vary that red. We can bring the yellow down a little bit more, maybe make it a different type of red. Maybe bring the magenta down a little bit. You know, it just depends on what kind of red you want it to be. Now we can add a little cyan to it. You know, kind of darken it up a little bit. You know, maybe I want his glove to look like that. All right. Now, I'm going to go to this glove here, but the problem is how I built it. Because I built it in, some of this has open paths. And so if I go and I click on this path, and I try to use this color that I made, it's going to do that. Okay? And that doesn't look good. Even if I select all these other shapes here, I'm going to select all these shapes. It may start to look somewhat decent, but it's going to look weird, I know. Okay? Yeah, see, it just does not do a good job. So, here's the deal. Let's say you've got some open paths, and you want to fill them. Well, what you can do is you can actually draw the shape with just a color. But we don't want to do that on the same layer. So what I'm going to do is I am going to lock this layer for a moment, okay? And then I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to drag this layer up underneath here, okay? And the reason why is because I'm going to draw and trace out a red shape like this. We'll just trace around our drawing. Now we're not seeing anything yet. That's because the last thing I selected was it had a stroke on it with no fill. So I'm going to actually put that in there. I'm going to turn my stroke off because I won't need that stroke. Okay? So now this This is the way I show my students how to make a drawing in Illustrator where we ink on one layer and we color on the next. Because what I'll have them do is I will have them make shapes that have no fills on their top layer, and they'll use their Wacom tablet to use the blob brush tool, and also they'll use the stroke, the regular pen tool and the pencil tool, and they'll actually do width, change the width so it looks much more like a pen drawing. And then we'll do that all on one layer, and then we'll put our color underneath here. So see how that looks? Now, if this layer was on top, it'd be covering it up. And that's why I drug this layer up underneath here. Okay, so that will actually cover this. Now, we have a little issue here, I see. Now, remember, we can always make some alterations. And the other method for this, by the way, is you may have seen pictures where basically, like when we were in first grade and we were asked to color something, there were those of us who colored outside the lines and those of us who colored inside, and the teachers always liked the kids' artwork that, or at least when I was growing up, they'd always pin up the work that was colored inside the line. So anyway, some illustrations you'll see they'll intentionally draw outside the line. In Illustrator, this is how we would get that kind of loose look. So if you want to do that look to your artwork, that's how you would do it. Is you put your inking on one layer, and then you would put your color on another, and then you would offset a little bit. Okay. So let's continue on here. We'll move that back up here. All right. Let's go and do his. I'm going to unlock this layer because these paths here are closed, and I want to fill this with an orange. Okay, that's not quite orange. So what I'm going to do is, and mind you, we could do this if we need to see more color here. Or we could do this and try to pick an orange this way. That's a little bit more orangey. Okay. The other, yeah, that actually looks pretty good there. I was going to say something else, but I like the way that looks. So we'll go to this shape here, and we'll click our eyedropper. Now, mind you, I've got my drawing turned off, so now we'll just click that, okay? And we're going to get his little nose right here like this. So these are the carrots, okay? Now, these water droplets here are open paths, and that's how I drew them. And so if I was to fill them with a color, and we'll just put that color in for a second, put blue, it's going to look unusual, okay? It's going to do that. So what I'm going to do is, some of this stuff I'm going to color up underneath, okay? And like, if this is a puddle here, and it looks like that's all kind of one path there. Maybe that's grouped. I wonder if that got grouped there. Oh, there we go. Okay. And let's say we were going to fill that with blue here, then it would do that. Okay? Because that's sitting on top. So again, what I'm going to do is, in order to make these water droplets and that water, I am going to lock my layer 2 here, which is my line drawing. I'm going to go down here to this layer 3, which I put underneath here. And we're going to draw these shapes out. Now, I could use the pen tool and just draw it. So like we'll draw the first one up here. And the way we need to think about drawing it is, think about like if this was a pen and ink drawing and then you were just coloring it with maybe, a brush and paint, or maybe you've got a marker, we would need to think about what would the shape of that color be. So I'm going to take the stroke off this thing. Okay, go to the fill, and we'll fill it with a blue here. And so that whenever we have these open paths, if you're adding color, now you could make your snowman all just black line if you want to. I am not forcing you guys to make them in color. I'm just showing you your options if you want to go to color. But if you have a situation like this where you have an open path and you want this to look much more natural, then I would draw this water droplet shape as a shape, and just have the outline there to kind of accent the shape of the water droplet, and also kind of looks a little bit like a shadow. We'll actually make a shadow for it too. So we're going to go around here. So all these shapes I'm building on the bottom layer here are they only have fills. They have no strokes. There's that. Now, if I want to go a little faster, and I know one of the students here told me that they have a Wacom tablet and they have another thing that's sort of similar to a Cintiq, and you don't want to sit here all day. You can always use your pencil tool and just draw a shape out like that. Okay, so I'm just drawing now, so it'll be a little faster. I know most of you are working with a pen or you're working with your trackpad. That's why I cover the pen tool so much. But for those students who maybe are in game art or in animation, if you happen to be in animation, they gave you this as this class as an elective, then and you have your tools and you've been working for a while. This is a quicker way so that we don't have to go and use the pen tool. So I'm actually just drawing here, okay? And we can just draw that shape out. Okay. Now I actually obviously have white shapes built already somewhere. And these shapes I think are on top this top layer because I had drawn this before. This is what I call half baked because I actually have this all finished. So you see what it looks like all finished. But I want to point out here, if you want to make something look like water, I learned a long time ago, you just do a flat shape, and then you add a little highlight shape of white, but you don't put a stroke on it, okay? And that will actually make that look more like water. Now the other thing too is I have my drawing here, so I can actually shade him. So I want him, I want the snow to be white, and we'll just go around here with the pencil tool again because it's a little quicker. Now, if you're don't have the luxury of this tablet like I have, then you're going to have to use the pen tool, and then you're going to have to probably go back and edit it. But let's go through here. Now, I'm on the wrong layer, but we'll see what happens here when I get finished because we can move this shape. I'm going to show you how to move a shape to a different layer, okay? That's why I kind of like building as much of this as possible so that I run into encounters. And see, I knew I was going to make that kind of a purple color there, okay? Or violet. That's the correct term. Because purple is a crayon, they always say. And so, here's the deal. If I have two layers here, and I've got a layer for some of my inking or my line work, and then I've got a layer for shapes, if I want to move that, look at your layers palette here for a second, and this shape is selected, and when it's selected, there's a little dot. This indicates the selected art. Now, both of these layers are unlocked. So I'm just going to drag this down here. And see, that's how we move one shape to another layer, okay? And then, that looks a little bit more natural. Anyway, I think I probably have done enough here because this is almost finished. And as you can see, this is my finished artwork, okay? And actually, I like some of the things going on in this drawing that I had just worked on with the cape going this way. I kind of like the way I drew his mustache better. So, sometimes, that will happen. And so I might go back and finish that one later on. But anyway, let me turn off my drawing. And there we go. Okay? So, I wasn't saving things. Remember, when you save something, let's go over here and save this. We'll go to Save As. And the way you're going to send it to me is you're going to put your last name on your project. All right? So this would be my last name, Moyers. And then I'm always in the habit, because we could put a space in there, but this was because a long time ago, Windows, PC, they wouldn't recognize a space, and you always have to do this underscore And then I'm just used to doing that. And then you want to put project 1, okay? And we don't have to type in all of project 1. We could do PRO1 or P1, okay? And then we would save it as an Illustrator file. Now I have the latest version, but as I said before, if you want to be safe, and if you're working on a project that you're sending to a client and you don't know what version they have, save it down to a legacy. Now, some people might even have earlier versions. So if you ever work for a client and you're sending them Illustrator art, and that's what they've been asking for, and they say they have Illustrator, ask them what version they have, because if it's below CC, you can save it all the way down to Illustrator 3. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to save this as legacy. We'll do that. We'll click OK, and then we would take that file and upload it to the submission folder. Okay. And I'm going to create a submission folder for this project. I'm actually going to extend the deadline here. I'm going to alter our syllabus so that, because I was thinking when I woke up this morning, I could, I want to make some alterations here to our syllabus and our assignments. So you'll be seeing that, and so you'll have a little more time to work on this project. Anyway, that will end our tutorial.